Beautiful ones, on July 7th of this year, Uranus stormed into Gemini for the first time in 84 years. Now, for 2 months, we've tasted its electricity, the mental lightning, the information storms, the nervous system awakenings. But now, Uranus has slammed on the brakes at 1 degree Gemini and is retreating back into Taurus. This retrograde is the crossroads. From now until May 2026, we walk between two worlds: Taurus stability breaking down and Gemini revolution breaking through. Now, the question is, are your foundations strong enough to carry the speed of the future? Well, hello, beautiful ones. I'm Cindi, psychic medium, astrologer, and guide through the stars. If you're new here, welcome to Simply Cindi. And if you've been walking with me for a while, I'm so glad you're here again. You don't have to be an astrologer to feel this one. Uranus is the planet of shocks, freedom, and awakening. And when it shifts, we all feel it. So stay with me, because what I'm about to share may shift how you think about freedom itself, not just in the world, but in your own life. So, are you actually ready for the Gemini era, or are you still negotiating with Taurus's comfort? Beautiful ones, let's rewind for just a moment. So back in 2018, and by the way, I have videos about this and I will put it up here. This will take you all the way back and what we've been through with Taurus. So back in 2018, Uranus entered Taurus, and ever since, it's been rewriting the ground under our feet. Taurus rules money and food, survival, the body, our sense of worth and security. And for 7 years, we've felt the earth rumble. Systems of stability cracking, old values dissolving, and our bodies and our finances pushed to adapt. Then came July 6th of this year. And for the first time in 84 years, Uranus stormed into Gemini. And wow, could we feel it? Mental lightning, information overload, nervous system buzzing, conversations shifting overnight. It was just a taste, though, a preview of what the future and where it's headed. But here's the twist. Only 2 months later, on September 5th, that was just a couple days ago, Uranus stationed retrograde right at 1 degree of Gemini. And instead of rushing forward, it turns back towards Taurus. That's the message of this retrograde. Don't sprint headfirst into the Gemini future until your Taurus foundations are strong enough to carry it. Before we can hold the speed of Gemini's electricity, we have to make sure the ground beneath us won't give way. If your mind is the cage, what happens when lightning hits the bars? Uranus is the planet of sudden liberation, of innovation, and upheaval. He doesn't wait for permission. He shocks, he awakens, he flips that script. And now, for the first time in over 8 decades, Uranus is moving through Gemini. Now, Gemini rules information, networks, communication, the way that we learn, siblings, duality, and adaptability. Now, you put those two together, and what do we get? The disruption of how we think, how we speak, and how we connect. So collectively, this can look like radical change in the system that carries information. We're talking media breaking down and rebuilding, AI leaping forward, transportation and supply chains jolted awake. We've seen some of this, but it's not just out there in the world. It's also a reset of the nervous system itself. So think about it. Gemini rules the mind, the lungs, the arms, the hands, the way signals travel through the body. And Uranus is electricity. When those two meet, It's like plugging your entire nervous system into a higher voltage. And I do have a video where I talk about that with Uranus and Gemini. I'll put that up here too. Now, you may feel more restless than usual, more wired, or even scattered. Some of you might notice sleep disruption. Or have you noticed like buzzing in the body? Or a mind that just won't shut off? Others might feel sudden clarity, like lightning cutting through mental fog. Either way, this isn't random. Uranus and Gemini is literally rewiring the circuitry of how you process information, how quickly you adapt, and how freely you let energy run through you. And here's the gift. Once the reset settles, you'll be able to think differently, learn faster, and communicate with a freedom you may not have touched before. This is an upgrade that y'all have talked about, that some of y'all talked about for years. This is that upgrade, okay? Personally, Uranus and Gemini asks us to rewrite our thought patterns, to notice the mental cages we've been living in and recognize they're not locked. They've only felt that way. This is about breaking free from the stories that kept us small, finding new ways to communicate, and redefining what freedom looks like in your everyday connections. So whether you feel it as a mental buzz or a restless curiosity or a sudden download of ideas, understand this. Uranus and Gemini is not just changing the conversation. It's changing the very circuitry of your mind. Now, let's pause for a second. What does Uranus retrograde in Gemini actually feel like? Because I've said what it's going to feel like and what it has been for the last 2 months as Uranus goes direct. But what happens when it retrogrades? What does that feel like? So when Uranus is direct in Gemini, it sparks downloads and breakthroughs and mental lightning, right? But the retrograde flips that current inward. So instead of scattering your energy outward, it forces you to hear the static inside your own mind. So from early September until mid-November, before Uranus slides back into Taurus, you may notice sudden doubts about the idea that felt so exciting in July. You may also notice miscommunications, tech glitches, or information overload that pushes you to slow down and rethink. You may also notice a restless nervous system, like buzzing thoughts, sleep disruptions, or flashes of anxiety, all pointing to patterns that need rewiring, not ignoring. And you may also feel old thoughts looping, resurfacing, so you can see the cage you built and decide if you're ready to break it. This retrograde isn't about shutting Gemini energy down. It's about testing it. Uranus is asking, can you hold the speed of the future without losing your balance? And if the answer is no, that's why it's heading back into Taurus, to stabilize the ground before we move forward. No stable body, no liberated mind. What Taurus foundation still wobbles under Gemini's speed? When Uranus turns retrograde at 1 degree Gemini, it doesn't just sit there. By November, it slides back into Taurus, and that's the signal to us that we can't sprint ahead into Gemini's freedom until the ground beneath us is steady. So Taurus is money, food, the body, and the values that keep us safe. Think of it as the soil. Uranus can electrify Gemini all day long, but if the roots in Taurus aren't healthy, the whole system shorts out. So between November and February, we'll be revisiting those foundations. For many of you, that means looking again at money and security, how you earn, how you save, where you're overspending or what survival fears are still running the show. It also means grounding your nervous system. Because remember, Gemini is speed, signals, and mental electricity. But you can't hold that current if your Taurus body is fried. Sleep, nutrition, movement, breath, they're not optional. They're the anchor. So what I'd like for you to do is ask yourself during this retrograde, ask yourself these questions. What comforts are you clinging to because you feel safe, but they're actually keeping you stuck? That's the first question. Then the second is, what beliefs about money, worth, or survival are keeping you circling the same loop over and over and over? And then the third and final question during this retrograde that I'd like for you to ask is, what would stability look like if you built it on your truth and not tradition? All right, beautiful ones, let's talk about where this Uranus retrograde will land for each of you. Okay, so remember, these are collective themes. The way it plays out depends on your chart, but you'll feel the pressure most if you have planets or angles in these signs and degrees. Okay, so for Gemini and Sagittarius, this is direct. Gemini and Sagittarius right here. This is direct. Uranus is in your sign or it's opposing it. So for Geminis, it's your identity, your body, your voice being shaken awake. And for Sagittarius, it's relationships and the mirror of the other. Freedom is calling, but so is truth. And the challenge, don't scatter your energy, Sag. Choose the conversations that actually liberate you. Okay? Now, instead of, because it's retrograde, instead of sudden external changes like moves or relationships ending or a big announcement, this will feel more internal. So for Gemini, your identity crisis or questioning your voice. And for Sagittarius, it could be like relationship patterns resurfacing. It's less about the new people showing up and more about the old patterns in you being exposed. For Virgo and Pisces, right here, Virgo and Pisces. Here's, you guys have the square to this Uranus, okay? So you guys are squaring this Uranus. Uranus pushes tension into your routine, Virgo, and your surrender, Pisces. The nervous system wants to rewrite how you integrate body and spirit. Now, the gift, what feels like overwhelm, can actually be a reset, forcing you to simplify and realign with what matters most. Now, with it being retrograde, it's retro squares, right? So it feels like inner resistance, not outer, inner. Virgo may spin in mental overdrive, or anxious loops, or perfectionism, or routines breaking down. And Pisces may struggle between surrender and escapism. Both signs feel the tension inside, not just in outer circumstances. Now, next is Taurus and Scorpio. Now, you guys are not done yet. Uranus has been shaking your axis since 2018, and this retrograde pulls you back in. So Taurus, money, security, and body, okay? And Scorpio, we're talking intimacy and power and deep transformation. You're revisiting the foundation one last time. The challenge is, are you holding on to comfort that blocks your freedom? And in retrograde, this is the most literal return. Taurus revisits security issues, like I said, money, food, and body. And Scorpio is revisiting intimacy and power struggles. And instead of brand new shocks, it's let's go back to what we didn't finish since 2018. Old fears and attachments resurface so you can finally release them. Okay? Now, Cancer and Capricorn, right here. Cancer, Capricorn. You get the sextile. So Uranus is sextiling you guys. This is opportunity energy. Okay. Sextiles, you guys know it's an opportunity, but you have to put the energy into it. Okay. Make a choice. Now, this is opportunity energy, but it requires the action. Like I said, Cancer, your intuition is sharper than ever. So pay attention and listen to it. Capricorn, the structures you build now can hold Gemini's speed later. Think of it as stability plus innovation, and move when the nudge comes. Okay. Remember, retrograde, sextile retrograde are quieter. So Cancer's intuition sharpens inwardly. That means dreams, gut feeling, synchronicity. Pay attention to those things, Cancer. Capricorn is revisiting long-term structures. Remember, you are rebuilding, Capricorn. Maybe realizing old systems, they just don't hold anymore. The opportunities come through reflection, not immediate outer action. And then we have Aries, Leo. Where's Aries? Leo, Libra. Where's Libra? And Aquarius. Okay. These are the adjustments. You guys all have semisextiles and quincunxes. They mean subtle but relentless nudges. So Aries, pay attention to those inner whispers. Okay. You have them very strong. Pay attention to them. Leo, let your bravery meet Taurus's patience. And Libra, balance independence with connection. And Aquarius, get out of your head and into action. Okay. The small shifts you make now will create the breakthroughs later. Okay. Now, retrograde, these will feel very subtle, but they'll be like subtle irritations that you don't even know why, right? Rather than loud shocks. These are like subtle irritations. So Aries gets restless whispers. And then Leo struggles internally with pacing versus action. Okay. Now Libra is going to be wrestling with balancing independence inside relationships. And Aquarius feels mental overdrive but hesitates to act. Okay. It's more internal rewiring than visible changes. Okay. Now, you know, this is why we do the practices, the modalities to ground ourselves, to let the energy go through. Okay. Now, if you got planets, any of you signs, if you have planets around 27 degrees in Taurus and back to 1 degree in Gemini, this retrograde is personal. Okay. Uranus will be talking directly to you if you have planets in these 27 degree and 1st degree Gemini. Okay. 1 degree Gemini. So pay attention to where the instability shows up, because that's exactly where the freedom is trying to break through. Okay. Let me say that again. Pay attention to where the instability shows up, because that's exactly where the freedom is trying to break through. Expect old themes. If you have these planets, if you have a planet between 27 and Taurus, 27 degrees, and then all the way to Gemini 1st degree, if you have it anywhere in there, expect old themes to resurface for closure. Okay. It won't feel brand new. It's the redo, the rethink, the rewire, the revisit, right? It's that part. Want fewer shocks? Then you're going to have to train that circuit that carries them. Okay. When Uranus is retrograde, the work turns inward. And the best way to move through it is to train your system to carry the current. So instead of letting it fry you, here are 4 ways to work with this retrograde. Okay. Now, the first one is Gemini rules information, and Uranus throws lightning through it. So take an honest look at what you're consuming. Too much media noise will overload your nervous system at this point. Okay. You have to learn to work with this. Be selective, curate your feeds, your conversations, your daily input, and ask yourself, does this information liberate me or does it lock me back into fear? Okay. Pay attention to what you're ingesting through media. Okay. During this retrograde time. All right. So let's do a little journaling. Uranus and Gemini loves to drop insights at random. Remember, Uranus is genius. Gemini is adaptable, right? So, and moves quickly. This is the kind you think you'll remember, but you don't. Because Gemini's quick, okay? Don't judge the messiness. Write them down. Whenever you get insights, I want it, whether they're random, like they're probably going to be random, just write it down, okay? Write them down, journal, or use a voice note or sketch. Okay, the scattered sparks are part of the process. Okay, later you'll see the thread weaving themselves together. Now, the next one is breathing and using lymph node and your grounding. Okay, this is body work. Uranus electricity in Gemini hits the nervous system. So breath work, shaking, lymph movement, grounding. These aren't extras. They're the winning and wiring work. Okay, this is all helping you rewire this. If you've been following my Sacred Sync or any of my other things, you'll know even 5 minutes of intentional breathing can reset your whole circuit. Another one that you can do is Gemini is curious, right? And playful and experimental. Okay, you don't need to commit forever. You just need to try it. So learn a phrase in a new language, explore a new subject, take a short trip, or start a conversation you've been avoiding. Uranus will spark breakthroughs through your curiosity, not through staying in the same old loops. Remember, beautiful ones, Uranus retrograde isn't about resisting change. It's about preparing your body, your mind, and your spirit. So when the next surge of electricity comes, you're not shocked. You're ready. Before we close, beautiful ones, a quick reminder. If this video spoke to you, don't forget to hype it. That's the best way to let the algorithm know you want more of this type of content, okay? And it truly helps my channel grow. And remember, Mondays are for the big transits here on Simply Cindi. If you love diving into Uranus retrograde today, come back every Monday for fresh forecasts that map the week and the months ahead, okay? This is where we kind of deep dive. Think of it as your cosmic or universal weather report, okay? Tuned to your soul. This Uranus retrograde is not punishment. Remember this. It's a reset. Since July, Uranus has cracked open Gemini's door, showing us flashes of the future. But before we can walk through it, we're asked to tend the ground beneath our feet. From September through February, the old Taurus lessons return. You know, the ones about money and food and body and worth and survival. And this is not to hold us back, but to make sure our roots are strong enough to carry Gemini's speed. Because once Uranus re-enters Gemini in April and it clears its shadow in May, the current will be unstoppable. I mean, we just got a little bit for 2 months. So this is your bridge time. The pause before the surge. Use it to stabilize. Use it to listen. Use it to rewire your nervous system and release the comforts that keep you stuck. Uranus isn't here to strip you of stability. He's here to free you into a greater truth. The mind may feel the static now, but the breakthrough is on the other side of this reset. And when May 2026 arrives, you won't just be thinking differently, you'll be living differently, and you'll know you built the foundation that made freedom possible.